Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here. So I think unlike some of the other speakers, I have experience running a startup in the private sector, and I have less experience with managing moonshots or this kind of structured focus on a particular problem. And so as a startup based in Silicon Valley, I think there are things that we can learn that apply to the funding and organization of Moonshot. So I'm going to talk a bit about our product and our company and some lessons that I think can be learned. Let's see. So Quora's mission is to share and grow the world's knowledge, and I'm going to talk about how we use AI to enable that. If you look at the history of how people have shared knowledge, there's this relationship between technological breakthroughs and then new formats that enable people to share that knowledge. So way back in around 200,000 BC, humans first got the ability to use language to communicate, and this was an incredible change in the access to knowledge that any one person could have. So before language, you had a world where most animals and the humans at the time had to learn mostly from their own experience. They couldn't communicate in any kind of depth, and so this really kind of constrained the ability for evolution to produce people who are flexible, and so it's very inefficient for every person to have to be learning these lessons over and over. So once you get language, you start to have knowledge shared in the form of stories and many other formats, but stories in particular were important to let people share their knowledge from what they've learned from their own experience, so that other people can benefit from that experience. So that worked well. Eventually, you get to the 1400s, and the printing press comes along, and the printing press just kind of drastically reduced the cost of distributing printed information. There was this huge reduction in that cost, and as a result, you could now distribute tons of information to almost anyone economically. But you didn't just need the printing press. It took the development of these kind of institutions around the printing press, so book publishers, newspaper publishers, that had to do more than just operate a printing press. They had to run this whole process where they would ensure the quality of the information they were distributing. They would organize the reporting. They would maybe organize distribution. And so there's this whole set of activities around the printing press that were really important. So that worked well, and there's a huge amount of our history that was unlocked by the progress there. Eventually, in the 80s, you get to the internet. And the internet basically, again, just pushed the cost of distributing information almost all the way down to zero. Once you have information in digital form, the internet can get those bits from one device to another almost instantly and at almost zero cost. And so the internet was great if you're trying to distribute books or newspapers, but I think what's really interesting about the internet is these totally new formats it enabled. So these are things like forums or blogs or websites, and so that then unlocked this much bigger amount of knowledge than people could ever have gotten access to before that. So today we think that AI and machine learning is a massive trend on the same scale as these earlier technologies, but AI and machine learning alone are not going to take care of everything we need to enable their full potential. There's a need for similar to book publishers and these other institutions that had to be created. There's a need for institutions that are specific to AI and products and formats for knowledge sharing that are going to sort of enable us to reach the full potential of all human knowledge being shared to everyone who wants it. So so we hope that Quora can be one of these products. So there's this idea that at some point AI is going to get as powerful as humans, and people call this the singularity. I think there's a lot of questions about when that will be, and you can speculate about the consequences when that happens. But I think a more productive way to think about it is that there's this cycle going on right now where AI gets a little bit better, and that helps people make more progress faster, right? So when AI gets a little bit better, people can share knowledge better. They can develop the next generation of AI a little bit more efficiently. Then AI gets a little bit better. Then people get even more empowered. Then using that capability, they're able to make the next generation of AI. And these iterations are increasingly moving faster and faster. So I think that over time we're going to see this just get more and more rapid. And I think what we're really going to think of as the singularity in the long term is going to be this period or this process where you get to the point where humans can do everything that AI can do because they're enabled and they have interfaces that allow them to operate it with very low friction. And then AI can do everything humans can do because it can work with the humans to do things that it couldn't do on its own. And so this is going to cause some kind of merging, and maybe that in the long term you think of that as effectively the singularity, whether or not the AI by itself was able to do everything that humans could do. So we're based in Silicon Valley, and a lot of this progress in AI research has been happening in Silicon Valley. And then there's this whole generation of startups in Silicon Valley that are only possible because of this AI research. And so I wanted to just talk a little about what makes Silicon Valley the center of so much of this innovation, in my opinion. So you have a whole bunch of ingredients that all kind of fit together, and you need all of these at the same time. So the first one is a set of investors who really understand startups. These investors are comfortable with the risk that comes with startups, but they're also able to hold people accountable. And that there are these structures that allow for the funders of the investors, so like LPs investing in these venture capital funds, they're able to hold the venture capitalists accountable. And the venture capitalists are able to hold the entrepreneurs accountable. And it's not a perfect system, but it's a good enough system that most people's incentives are mostly aligned with doing what is going to cause the right amount of innovation and the right amount of risk taking. So in addition to the investors, there's this large pool of qualified employees. And it's specifically employees who are comfortable with taking the kind of risk that comes with innovation. And so that's really something that's hard to find in other places. There's a whole culture in Silicon Valley that supports it. And then I think one of the other parts of the ecosystem that's not as obvious that we've really benefited from is this other set of institutions that are built up around the ecosystem. So one example is our law firm. So when we started Quora, we didn't have to pay our law firm anything. We just gave them a little bit of equity in the company, and they were happy to take that in exchange for their services. And so we hadn't raised any venture capital yet, and so we were able to just not have any expense for our law firm. And eventually we raised money and we shift over to a normal fee-based arrangement with them. But that kind of relationship is something that really helps you. And we had a landlord that didn't try to make us sign a 10-year lease because they knew that we were a new startup and startups come and go. And there's a whole set of these firms and services you can work with that are really tuned well for startups. And then finally, there's just this general culture supporting startups. So there's, you can have a lot of talented employees, but employees need to think about their families, and that employees will be influenced by their friends. And if you don't have a culture where families are comfortable with risk taking, and people's friends don't see them as a failure. If the project they're working on fails, then none of this is going to work. So there's all these things that kind of fit together, and my view is not that every one of these is necessary for moonshots, but I think that to enable this moonshot ecosystem to exist, there's going to be a similar set of properties that need to be achieved. And so I think it's worth thinking about what are those characteristics that we're going to need to create in the society and the systems here to really enable these moonshots. So this is a picture of our first office. We paid about very low, I think it was about $600 a month. So for this office in downtown Palo Alto. This is the whole office. So you can see, you can just walk in the door and then you've got this desk just cramped in there. And we got this furniture from IKEA, and we ordered these monitors, and we got to work. And so there were 3 of us who started the company, and we spent most of 2009 just working out of this office. And that was enough for us to kind of de-risk the initial plan and get to the point where we could launch a product to our users. We're very lucky to be in the internet industry where it's very low cost to get to a working prototype, like an actual product that can launch. But I think there's lessons here that a lot of products that eventually become very big, they start out very small, and I think there's usually a lot of creativity involved in finding ways to cut corners to make the initial prototype as cheap and as fast as possible. And I think that kind of thinking can really apply to other types of innovation, even when the eventual product requires a massive effort. So what is Quora? So Quora is a place to share knowledge and better understand the world, and it takes the form of questions and answers. So anyone can come to the product and ask a question, and then we use AI to try to figure out who's the best person to answer that question. And we use that to route that to them. And then over time, we built up this big database of answers, and we use AI again for quality control. So today in 2019, we're about 10 years from when we started. We have over 300 million monthly unique visitors, mostly in English, but now across 24 different languages internationally. And the growth has just continued and continued year over year. We specifically support Japanese, and we have a mobile application and a web interface. Here's some examples of people who have used the product. So Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, he's written some answers. Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, they've all written answers. And then a wide variety of business leaders have used the platform to share their knowledge. So I want to talk a little more about AI. So in the world before AI, Quora wouldn't have been possible. In order to maintain quality at the scale we're operating at, there's a need for something like AI. The kind of manual review and manual moderation that small forums and these other Q&A products historically have done doesn't scale to the size we're at. And then AI is also needed to match people with the right questions. So in letting people share knowledge at this scale, there's a need for this matching between the people who have the knowledge and the people who want it. And then there's this need for quality control. And those things just don't work at this scale without something like AI. And so we built out this machine learning team in Silicon Valley in order to build up that capability. And the result is that every user of Quora is seeing a totally different experience. So they're seeing totally different questions and answers because we're tailoring it to what they're going to be interested in and what they're going to have expertise in to contribute back to society. And so the result of all this is that Quora is a pretty unique product. We focus a lot on credibility. So we have a lot of answers from people who have expertise in a particular area. We focus a lot on high quality content. partly through quality control and partly through making sure the best person answers each question. The experience is very personalized, as I mentioned, and as a company, we've needed to build up this pretty long-term focus. So AI is a technology that's been unfolding over many, many years. If you look at how much it's changed since we started 10 years ago to today, it's a pretty massive change. But that change has been kind of gradual. Every year there's new breakthroughs, and as a company, we've needed to adapt as it comes, and we're going to need to continue to adapt going forward. And so that's required us to build up this long-term focus while at the same time being very iterative internally. And I think there's things that a lot of Moonshot projects can learn from this, because a lot of Moonshots are riding some kind of exponential technology trend that may not be all there yet at the time that the project starts. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there. So that's basically our perspective and how we think that we've benefited from this trend, and I think there's a lot to learn. I will be happy to talk on the panel after the next session. So thank you.